Hi there, Steve Kaufman here. Today I'm going to talk about active and passive vocabulary. In fact, I call it in praise of passive vocabulary. I often have comments, people telling me that in order to learn a word, they have to use the word. If they don't use it, they can't learn it. And of course, many people say, how do I convert my passive vocabulary into active vocabulary? Well, let's begin with the first suggestion that in order to learn a word, you have to use it. I do not believe that. It is not possible. In the case of my Russian studies, I can read Tolstoy. My link statistics tell me that I know 50,000 words in Russian. Now, Russian is an inflected language, so maybe if I compare that to English, it equates to 30,000 words. And if I look at word families, whatever it is, maybe it's 20,000 words. 15, it doesn't matter. The point is that I have rarely spoken in Russian. Over the 3 years that I've been studying Russian, I've had maybe 15 or 20 conversations in Russian. Half an hour long, 15 minutes long. Not much longer. And when I speak, I use very few words. When I speak, I'm in survival mode. I'm reaching for words. And gradually, the words that I can use, the number of words that I can use increases. As I, for whatever reason, suddenly remember something that I heard. But my learning of words comes from what I listen to and what I read. It can be the only source of new words. And the number of words that I know passively far exceeds the number of words that I can use actively. And I'm happy with that, because in my situation, my main objective is to understand. I want to understand books and audiobooks and radio programs and podcasts and movies. And if I can understand, I'm happy, because I'm not in a situation where I need to use the language every day. Now, if I were in a situation where I was using the language more often, I would have more active words. In other words, I would be constantly seeking, searching, trying to get at the words that I have learned passively and start to use them. But still, I would have a limited number of words that enabled me to get through the situations that I would come across, whether it be at work or in stores or in social conversation with friends. Now, we know that in normal conversation, in the case of English, the most frequent 1,000, or let's take 2,000 words are going to account for 90% of a conversation, but they may only account for 70 or 75% of an academic document. So for conversation, you don't need as many words. But the main thing is that you understand what the other person is saying in a conversation. And of course, we know very well that to say that 90% of the words accounts, or at least the most frequent words accounts for 90% of the conversation, doesn't help you if the person keeps on referring to things that you don't understand. So it is far more important to be able to understand what other people are saying. And if, as you try to express yourself, you're missing some words, and you ask, well, how do you say that? People will help you. So if you speak more, and if you have more opportunity to use the words, your passive words will be converted to active words. But they start as passive words, and they remain passive words for a long time. And your understanding of these words increases as you encounter them in different contexts. And eventually you're able to convert some of them into active words. But it's not a big deal. It is normal. I would imagine that the ratio when you're in a foreign language of passive to active words is 10 to 1 or more. I don't know what the number is, but vastly greater, and there's nothing wrong. That's good. Now, how do you increase the number of active words that you can use? Yeah, try to use them. Is one way if you are in situations where you have to speak. But if you're not often in situations where you have to speak, don't worry about it. You're fine. Language is not about performing for a grade, for a mark, for a test. Language is about communicating. So if your communication needs are largely to understand things, then you should be working very hard on increasing your passive vocabulary. And it's also easier to increase your passive vocabulary by continuing to read and listen and increasing your understanding, your grip on these words until they will slowly slide into the active ledger. But there will always be a much smaller number of them. Furthermore, we will always make mistakes. We will always struggle for words in a foreign language. Why do people expect that they're going to perform somehow perfectly in a foreign language? You aren't going to. So I say passive vocabulary is great. The more of it you have, the greater the potential for you to convert some of those passive words into active words. And the different things that you can do, like reviewing them in flashcards to become more attentive, that all helps. Obviously, talking helps. To be able to use them, you've got to use them. I'm not a great fan of correcting people when they speak, and that's why at Link, when we have our online conversations, we try not to correct while people are speaking, but we type out all the words and phrases that they misuse, and we send them a report which they then can study. So you have the time at your leisure to study these. And slowly, and you will also, as with everything in language, you'll be able to use certain words at times, then you'll forget certain words at times. So again, don't expect perfection when you're working on a second language, but passive vocabulary is great, and it'll gradually convert itself into active vocabulary as you use them. So I guess that was the main thing on this. What was the other one they said? So I don't believe that you have to use a word in order to remember it, but you do have to use it in order for it to be active. If you haven't used it, it's not active. But you can build up the potential for active vocabulary by continuing to expand your passive vocabulary. There we go. Thank you very much. I hope this makes sense.